Here's Mike Rizzo.
Folks, welcome back to Pink Smoke, where we talk everything Inter Miami, everything Lionel Messi, and everything world football in South Florida. I mentioned before the break, Keith Costigan is joining us. Well, he's here. Keith, how you doing, partner? Thanks so much for taking the time. Are you going to be down here in sunny South Florida coming up this Saturday with our good friends at Apple TV?
Yes, I'm looking forward to being in Miami because it's always a great place to come. I think it's one of those on the calendar you say away game, Miami. I think we'll have some things to do outside of the game as well. But obviously the new stadium, it looked incredible last week on screen. Jake and Taylor were there. So excited to be on the second game. Sometimes the first game doesn't get everything because there's like a little bit of emotion, the sideshow. Second game, a little bit more focused. So we'll see if Inter Miami can get that first win in the new stadium.
And Keith, I'm the voice of our Herons on the English side, and it was an electric atmosphere. Now, certainly not the result we were looking for. You know, Inter Miami, certainly we were battering them at the end of that game. I mean, a chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity, but that decisive goal ultimately didn't come, drawing Austin, the Verde and the black. But Keith, just from and you're outside looking in, partner. Calling a couple of games for Inter Miami, obviously being around the MLS. What's been the most surprising part about this Inter Miami team? Was it the early exit from the CONCACAF Champions Cup, or is it maybe something tactically that Coach Mascherano is doing right now with our Herons?
Yeah, a couple of things. I thought they ended last season in as good a form as I've ever seen any team in Major League Soccer. It seemed like they found the balance in the attack, how to get the best out of Messi. Suarez went to the bench, Allende, Segovia. All of a sudden, it was a fit. To start this season, biggest surprises for me is Bertarami. We haven't found a way to see Inter Miami get the best out of him. Now, he's a massive signing. I'm talking about a player who most of us would agree was the best number 9 in all of North America in terms of Liga MX, MLS, and in Canada as well. So that was a surprise. And I do think there's the human element because you just mentioned the exit from CONCACAF Champions Cup. That was a big focus for Inter Miami this year. They wanted to win it. I know the owners talked about it immediately after lifting MLS Cup. So there is going to be that little bit of a hangover effect of not moving on in that. I think, look, Inter Miami are going to be fine in the business end of the season because of the players they have. But right now, I don't think we're seeing the very best version of Inter Miami. And for me, that's a surprise.
Keith Costigan, lead MLS play-by-play man with Apple TV, is joining us here on Pink Smoke. Now, Keith, talk to me about Inter Miami trying to replace Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba. You know, they signed Sergio Reguilon to a big deal. Partner, I'm not that surprised to see him on the injury report week in and week out. It's kind of who he was, I think, at Tottenham, in La Liga, even this time during Manchester United. And I truly think that they're struggling to find a consistent player in the midfield to hold down that number 5, number 6, whatever it may be that Sergio Busquets played so long for Inter Miami. How do you think they've handled kind of the retirement of those two this season?
There was a great moment at the weekend where the ball was played out wide by Messi, and our good friend Taylor Twellman said, the only person out there is the ghost of Jordi Alba, because that's the kind of position he would be picking up. You're not just talking about replacing 2 players. You're talking about 2 players who were the greatest in their roles of their generation. So it was never going to be a case of some new players going to come in and immediately you have a fit. I agree with you on Reguilon. I think he's an adequate player. I think he's good going forward. You got to get him on the field. He's got to play 9, 10, 11 games, get an understanding. That's been a concern for him throughout his career. Fingers crossed they get that sorted at some stage this season. I think Ajala was an interesting pickup, but certainly not a Busquets. He's someone that is economical in midfield, keeps the ball, has a lot of high frequency of touches in those areas. But I think the best way of looking at this is you have to find other players, different types of midfielders. If you try go like for like, if you try to replace Alba and Busquets and look for a player that plays similar, they're never going to play at that level because they were 2 of the very best. So I think you'll see a different Inter Miami when all is said and done this year, and 2 players that play those positions but play those roles in very different ways.
Now, Keith, I'm a diehard Manchester United fan. I love Inter Miami, love Manchester United. Those are my 2 squads. But I got excited when I saw Casemiro, maybe in the news of possibly coming to Inter Miami. And then, a team that I can't stand, but a player I respect in Liverpool and Mo Salah. I hear the rumblings, and it's hard not to get excited down here in Miami. Are you buying any of the reports that those two could possibly be playing football in South Florida?
Having met the ownership group, having been in Miami, I never cast aside any rumor because Lionel Messi is the best salesman, David Beckham is the best salesman, and people want to be involved in the Inter Miami project. So I'm a Liverpool fan. I won't hold against you your obvious
Keith,
bias
you're
towards
killing
Manchester
me.
United. We will get through this interview, and we'll be cordial when we see each other, but we'll know deep down the rivalry. No, I think Casemiro he's still playing at a very high level for Manchester United. Even when it was announced he was moving on, he's been a big part of their team rising the table and getting into third place. And they're going to play Champions League next year. You'll be happy to hear based on the way he's been playing. So I think that would be a good pickup. Mo Salah, yeah, I think he's going to have multiple options. We've heard San Diego. I live on the West Coast. We've heard that as well. I don't know if that would be an exact fit because you have two players who are probably more comfortable moving to that right-hand side, coming in on the left foot. You have a guy like that already in Lionel Messi. So that maybe not as good a fit, but for Inter Miami fans, you got to love the fact that every time there's a big player available, they're linked with him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, of the two, Casemiro is probably the more likely to end up in South Beach.
I mean, Keith, Inter Miami aside, we have a lot of big-time players, within the MLS. I mean, you got Heung-min Son, former Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously, you got the great Lionel Messi, the Antoine Griezmann stuff with Orlando. I mean, if you get two guys of this caliber in this league, I personally think it's only going to help the growth of American soccer. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Anytime. What I like is you look at, even at Inter Miami, I love last year when you lifted the title and we saw Messi celebrations, we saw Busquets, we saw Alba, and then you see a Noah Allen and an Ian Frey. And that's the great thing of, like, you think of basketball, you think of NFL, you always think of the elite players, and then you have the player who come from more humble beginnings, who fought their way to be in that position. I think of the next generation. You think of a Noah Allen coming through, and every day he's training with Lionel Messi and Busquets and Alba and learning the habits of the elite. So I think we're seeing the benefits now, but we're going to see the benefits of that in the future as well for top young players that will be attracted to come to play for Inter Miami too. And yeah, Antoine Griezmann, you got to be excited about when that rivalry game Orlando-Miami happens. All of a sudden it's Griezmann against Messi. A couple of days ago, and by the way, Atletico Madrid won today against Barcelona. Griezmann's coach Simeone in the build-up was almost in tears talking about what kind of human Griezmann was and what kind of player he is. So yeah, anytime you can add that quality, that level of human being to a league, you got to do it, and it's exciting times.
Keith Costigan, one of the lead MLS play-by-play men for Apple TV, is our guest here on Pink Smoke. Keith, how good is Griezmann going to be in this league?
I liken him to Son, the level, the Son and the Mullers of Vancouver and
like
LAFC.
Keith, I guess us. Messi good? Messi good?
Messi is a different level. Messi is like there's nobody at that level for me. And I think to compare anybody to Messi, players don't want to be compared to Messi because, like, we know he is every player's favorite player. He's that good. But I think Messi gets away with not having to run as much because he's so good. Son, Thomas Muller, Griezmann will fit into the category of being elite level underneath Messi, but at the very top level of the game, and someone that will work for the team as well. And you love that. So setting standards, good on the ball, a goal scorer, can set up his teammates and help you build a culture. And we always hear this, every sport, NFL, NBA, MLS, build a culture. We want to have a good culture within the group. Antoine Griezmann fits that. Oh, by the way, he gets to wear that medal around his neck as well. He's a World Cup winner. So anytime you can add that to the group, it's going to be quality. I'm excited for that Orlando Inter Miami game.
Yeah, Keith, the reason I bring it up, I'm hearing waffle from, a couple of my Orlando guys, good buddies, by the way, but hearing waffle from my Orlando buddies saying a new best player is entering the MLS coming up this summer. So I try to ignore it, but, we're all trying to defend our clubs. But you're right. The Florida Derby going to be a lot more interesting with Griezmann on the other side, and obviously us with Lionel Messi down here with Inter Miami. Joining us again, folks, Keith Costigan, one of the lead MLS play-by-play men for Apple TV. Now, Keith, if we can bounce around the MLS a bit, who has surprised you the most? obviously, at least with me down here, I'm gatekeeping. I've been telling my buddies and our colleagues, I'm gatekeeping. Down here at Inter Miami, we have the MLS Cup. Everyone's chasing after us. But who should I be looking out for, and who has impressed you, so far in this young season?
Well, LAFC have been the best team in the league so far. They haven't conceded a goal. No team has ever started the season with 6 straight clean sheets. Haven't conceded a goal. They beat, you can call your buddy and ask him what was the score against Orlando last week, and he might hang up on you. It was 5-0 at halftime. It ended 6-0. It could have been 10-0. That's how good they were going forward. Denny Bwanga and Son absolutely ran riot in this game. They've been outstanding. Seattle, you know about Seattle from Leagues Cup last year. They kind of handed it to you in that final in Lumen
We gave
Field.
them, Keith, we gave them that one, right? We gave them that one.
But Seattle are kind of like, that team that you might not look and see that massive name, but man, they fight for each other. They are in your face. I think it's Steelers defense, that kind of in your face mentality. So they've impressed me so far this season. And I think Red Bull New York, I know you guys are playing them this weekend. Michael Bradley has come in. I know they had a loss a couple of weeks ago, bad loss to Charlotte, but they are playing the youngsters. Julian Hall has got 5 goals this season. He's a teenager. So for me, I'd love to see those storylines as well. Michael Bradley, a former U.S. legend too. So those are the teams that I've looked at so far and said, they've got my attention. But you're right. Everybody is still chasing your boys at the end of the day, not only because you're MLS Cup champs, but because Messi's on that team as well.
And now it's surprised you bring up Nashville. Now, Nashville, I think, as far as the Eastern Conference, FC Inter Miami was able to take care of FC Cincinnati. Obviously, had to beat Nashville in the playoffs last year, but that was last year. If I'm looking at this year in the table this year, I'm looking at that team that bounced out Inter Miami. Now, Keith, we got to you and I need to get together and put in a petition to get rid of this stupid away goal. It's stupid. I don't understand why we still do this on this side of the continent. I mean, the Champions League in Europe got rid of that stupid thing. Regardless, Nashville is the one who bounces out. They're public enemy number 1 with Inter Miami fans down here.
By the way, I will say this about away goals.
Stupid.
The people that hate them are the ones that go out to them. When it works in your favor, you go, I can kind of understand why it works that way. But yeah, I'm in agreement. Look, if a game over 2 legs is level, we don't put more weight into a goal that was scored in one stadium over another. So, but I will say Nashville have taken a jump. They are legitimate contenders. They tied 0-0 at Club America last night in CONCACAF Champions Cup play. Brian Schwacke, a new goalkeeper. Christian Espinosa, one of the best assist men in MLS for the last 5 years with San Jose. They have made strides. So at the end of the season, when you're battling it out, hopefully, in your case, for number 1 in the East, I guarantee you Nashville will be right there with you. And Cincy have dropped, Columbus have dropped. So it's a new rival in that sense. And they may be the biggest threat to you lifting the Eastern Conference crown.
Now, Keith Costigan once again joining us here on Pink Smoke, one of the lead MLS play-by-play men for Apple TV. Now, Keith, if we could switch gears a little bit to the World Cup coming up here in a few months. Now, partner, my name, I'm half Sicilian, all right? I had a real issue with what went down in Bosnia, and come to find out, how about that little you-know-what stealing Donnaruma's card on the – I don't know if you saw this, Keith, but listen, you call me a sore loser. That's fine. But Donnarumma had a card where it tells him, hey, this is where these guys like to go on the penalty kicks. It was his cheat sheet. And a little you-know-what, the ball boy stole it. And that's why Donnarumma was ready to knock somebody out after that game. Listen, I can make all the excuses I want, Keith. Italy wasn't good enough. The Bastoni red card was awful. This is the 3rd straight time they're missing out on the World Cup. And then, listen, 2002 was when I was fully bought in as a United States men's national team fan. One of my favorite teams on the planet. I was proud of what they did in Qatar. They played a really good Netherlands team, and Memphis Depay was too much that game. But, Keith, after this most recent international break, I'm ripping my hair out. Losing 7-2 to good teams, like Belgium and Portugal. It's nice to know that if we get to the knockout stage, who knows now? Turkey's in the damn group. But if we get to the knockout stage, Keith, it's nice to know that we don't have a chance against a top 10 team, top 5 teams like Portugal and Belgium. Partner, you gotta tell me something good about this United States team. Because between Italy not in the competition for the third straight year and what the hell happened during that international break with my lads with the USMNT, I'm ready to rip my hair out.
By the way, I'm Irish. I haven't been in a World Cup since 2002. So don't even start with me about your
Fair
issues
enough.
with Italy.
Fair enough.
I've waited
You
a
win.
lot longer.
You win. You win the poop off between bad soccer teams right now. You win, partner. But I mean, listen, is there any good news with Pochettino in this group right now?
Yeah, look, I think it's not good when you lose 2 games. And you can say, well, we were trying different things. So are Belgium, so are Portugal. You can see it's 7 goals. It doesn't bode well. You don't go in with any confidence. But I will say this. Once the World Cup starts, all bets are off. Momentum shifts. US plays so many games at home, but they don't have a massive home field advantage because there's so many other different cultures here that come out and cheer on their team. I think that's going to be different in the World Cup. I think the once in a generation time where we're going to have a full stadium of 60,000 plus cheering on the US team and really getting behind them. I think the group is kind. I think we should get through the group. And even though you lost to Belgium or Portugal, some of the experiences in that, some of the spells in that games stand you in good stead if you play them again in tournament time. And you will not see some of the rotations, some of the players you saw in those friendlies in tournament time. So that's the best way I can come up with a positive spin on this for you. I think US have every opportunity to win a big knockout game. Beyond that, that would be icing on the cake for me.
Yeah,
but don't rule anything out just yet.
Keith, I'm hoping that, Pochettino didn't do this for his, retirement fund and that he's actually interested in winning football games. Now, Keith, France, Argentina, Spain, the 3 Lions in England. Partner, you being Irish, I'm sure you know what the hell Talk Sport is. Jim White and Simon Jordan, one of my favorite shows that I listen to in my spare time. If you ask an English person, they're already out of this World Cup. Number one, with the draw they got and how much they can't stand the German Thomas Tuchel. But in your opinion, out of all of the teams in the field, it seems like France, Spain, England, Argentina, it seems like those guys are the favorite. Where are you leaning for maybe who's going to be hoisting that trophy coming up this summer?
Yeah, normally when you talk out of region, you would think America, you would think South American teams are used to this style, this region, this weather, etc. I don't think Argentina have prepared well for this World Cup. They played Mauritania and Zambia. Not exactly the preparation to defend your crown. Brazil haven't looked good, although Carlo Ancelotti is the kind of coach that can get the best out of you come tournament time. So don't rule them off. But you just mentioned the 2 teams for me, Spain and France. Spain look the most complete team. They have the best identity in terms of football. And France, believe it or not, they could send 3 teams to the World Cup.
You're right. Yep.
And the 3 teams would be in the top 5 favorites for the World Cup. That's how much in-depth strength that they have. So it's hard to look beyond those 2. If I was to look from South America, maybe Colombia can make a run based on how good they've been at times. But even then, they're not a team that really play well when it comes to tournament time. So I'd be surprised, but maybe them as a dark horse.
And I mean, Keith, you mentioned Brazil, and I just realized I didn't even mention them. That's a problem for that federation, right? I mean, granted, when I started watching world football, was a young lad. Everything was about Brazil. Ronaldinho, R9. What I think they're missing, partner, is that true striker. Like, they put Rodrigo there. They put Vinicius there. And, it's funny because it's basically Madrid before Kylian Mbappe went over there, right? But I think they would benefit from a true number 9 up top being able to, play the position and actually be a true striker. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, 100. You mentioned the names, and wow, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up when you think of Ronaldinho in the World Cup, Rivaldo, Romario, like these kind of players. And now all of a sudden, Vini has never really delivered at the highest level for the national team. That's why, by the way, you talk to any Brazilian right now, they want Neymar in the squad. Neymar is hobbling around in the Brazilian league, injury prone, coming off another knee issue right now. Brazilian fans want Neymar in the squad. That's how in need of some kind of inspiration for this group. I still think Brazil come tournament time are a danger for anybody. But I look, and the names you mentioned of the past, they're so much better than the names of now, unfortunately, for Brazil.
And Keith, I think Brazilian fans are looking at a guy like James Rodriguez with what he's been able to do for Colombia, basically a folk hero at this point with what he's been able to do at the club. Now, Keith, listen, I appreciate all the time, partner. You're going to be down here in South Florida, and newsflash, partner, your booth is right next to mine. So if you hear me screaming, my bloody head off, you just tap on that friggin' glass and tell me to shut up, all right? Promise me?
That would mean it's a good day for you. And I will never begrudge people of a good day. If I hear you, I'm going to let it ride and let it slide. Enjoy.
Keith, my man, appreciate all the time, partner. Hope to have you back on the program soon, okay?
Thanks, Mike. Look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Absolutely. That was Keith Costigan from Apple TV. He'll be on the TV call tonight. Obviously, folks, I'll be on that radio call. We appreciate him being here and talking a little Inter Miami football, a little bit of everything. Quickly, before we go to timeout, I want to loop in my co-host and producer, Damian Perez. I perked up a bit what he said about Argentina. And you actually agreed. You don't think Argentina's kind of done their due diligence preparing to defend their